Okay, hello, Tom Maguire. So I'm here today to review Troy by Stephen Fry. So I haven't read Mythos or Heroes, and I've been meaning to for quite a while. I keep seeing them on the supermarket shelves, and I keep thinking how much they appeal, and I keep just finding excuses not to read them because there's just so many books out there, aren't there? There's so many hundreds, thousands of fantastic books out there. So I'm not slagging them off. I'm not saying they're not any good. I'm sure they're fantastic. But I've just had other things that I've kind of had on my list that I wanted to read or listen to. So I saw this one come up on my recommendations on Audible, and I just thought, Troy, brilliant, that's the one. I fancied the other two, but Troy being a bit more specific to my mind, I just fancied it more. It just appealed to me. So I've given it a go. I've not read this one. I've listened to it on Audible. It's narrated by Stephen Fry, and let's face it, he has an absolutely fantastic voice. He's absolutely brilliant to listen to. He's so kind of relaxing and characterful and charismatic, and he's just really good, isn't he? He's a national treasure, isn't he? Basically, he's just fantastic. So I know this channel is personal development, and I often find myself saying this when I review books that aren't strictly personal development, and this obviously isn't a personal development book. But I still think there's things that we can learn from this book. I still got thinking, in different ways around my own personal development from the story of Troy. And I kind of knew the story already. It's a very well-known story. So most people, I think, who listen to this or read this will probably already know the story of Troy. A lot of people will probably have seen the film with Brad Pitt, which is quite good, I think. Although I used to think it was a fantastic film, but looking back now, a few years into the future, it kind of has its cheesiness, but it is good. It is good. I just think it's a really good story. I think reading this kind of stuff is really, really important. I think if you're someone who takes their personal development seriously, you have to kind of open your mind and you have to read just for pleasure sometimes, and just kind of, there's also nothing wrong with escapism. Escapism is part of personal development. We all need to be able to get away and kind of switch off our minds from the things that we've been doing for so long, and it's really important. Einstein used to talk a lot about that, kind of doing different things at once and trying different things, and almost with this idea that a rest is as good as or a change is as good as a rest. And there's a lot to be said for that. So this is fantastic escapism. It's really well done. It's really well put together. Stephen Fry, like I say, is fantastic. I highly recommend it. Anyone who's read the other books, please feel free to comment below about Mythos and Heroes as to whether I should read them or listen to them, because although I really enjoyed this, I still don't necessarily think I'll be reading or listening to them anytime soon, just because I've got other stuff on my list that's kind of mounting up that I want to get through. But if you've got any comments about those other two, please kind of feel free to let me know below. That's really useful to me. But please also feel free to check out my Facebook page at Maguire Total Coaching. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram as well. TikTok is completely new to me, so I'm a complete and utter amateur. I have no idea really what it's about, but I'm going to be using it to try and get my message out there. And my message really is about the importance of personal development. I passionately believe that once we start to take our personal development seriously, once we get away from the kind of tradition of school and culture, the way we're put into a box and we're kind of limited and restricted, we're told what we can do, what we can't do, what we should and shouldn't do, what our abilities are and what our weaknesses are, we tend to restrict ourselves. And I think when we take our personal development seriously and we start thinking about our personal development, it's made a huge difference to me. It's made a huge difference to the people that I work with, to the people that I coach. And I'm just on a mission to get the message of the right kind of personal development out there to people, because there is a lot of bad advice out there as well. So I want to get the best of the world of personal development out there to as many people as possible. So I read as many books as I possibly can. I'm absolutely passionate about reading. I read close to 100 books a year if I possibly can. Some of those are audiobooks, to be fair, because it gives me more time. I'm often doing things where I can, I'm in the car perhaps, and I can listen to a book. So I highly recommend audiobooks as well. Sometimes people are snooty about that, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I would argue that listening is just as important a skill as being able to read, really. Listening is a hugely underrated skill. So if you're able to listen to books, then fantastic. So yes, personal development, I'm absolutely passionate about it, and I'm passionate about doing this stuff as well. And I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk earlier. He was interviewing someone who has had a lot of success through social media. They're into skincare products and things, and they've done really well. They've got like millions of followers and things, and they were saying how they do it just for the love of it. And I very much just do this for the love of it. I enjoy doing it, whether I've got 100 subscribers or 1,000 subscribers or whatever. I'm doing this because I want to leave honest reviews to my children so that my children can look back, have a laugh at me, and just giving them advice about the stuff that I read and why I read it, and then they can decide for themselves whether they want to read it or not. So I intend to be doing this well into my 90s, to be honest, because I'm not going to stop reading. Whilst I'm able to read, I'm going to be reading. So I feel that I can give an honest review about every book that I think is worthwhile talking about. So if you want to give me a like and a subscribe, that'd be massively appreciated as well. Thank you very much. That all makes a real positive difference to me, and I think it's a nice thing to do. So yeah. So Troy, it's fantastic. It's really entertaining. I'm not going to talk about what happens because it's a well-known story. I'm not going to sort of critique it too much particularly. It's really fun, really good to listen to. A great story. I think the one thing that I will link to personal development is the fact that Achilles had a choice, didn't he, in his life? He had a choice to live out the rest of his days happy but kind of in obscurity, so sort of, you know, basically no one knew who he was and no one would necessarily remember him, but he could be really happy and content and have love and all those things that most of us in our right minds would want to have. Or he could choose to go to war and be remembered forever and sung about and written about, and he chose glory basically, and so it didn't last very long, got shot through the Achilles tendon or the Achilles heel and died. But I just think that's kind of really relevant to personal development, because so much of personal development is controlling our ego and our emotions and kind of understanding what's important in life really and what isn't. And although I always say it's important to try and leave a legacy and to try to leave the world in a better place than when we came into it, and to try and think about future generations and young people, and to try and be a little bit humble really, and you know, we really don't want to leave behind this kind of image of us being selfish people who just didn't try and didn't make any effort and left the world in a state, which is something that kind of concerns me when it comes to the environment and things, which I've talked about in other reviews. So I think it's important that we think about how we leave things behind, but I think we also, more importantly than that in some ways, need to be grateful for what we have and to actually realise what's important and what is important. What's important is to have meaningful relationships with people, to be loved, to love other people, to have purpose, to have a reason to get up in the morning, to have something to look forward to. All these things that Achilles basically kind of like turned down just because he wanted to be remembered and sung about, and actually, so what really? What is the point necessarily? Although you could argue both ways. But to me, yeah, really entertaining book. Some very interesting stories in there that we can learn from. It isn't personal development, but I enjoyed it. Go out and buy it, read it, listen to it. Stephen Fry is fantastic. Couldn't recommend this one enough. It's really, really good. Escapism is important. See you very soon. Cheers.